Budu Saranai, let me welcome all our Dhamma friends and of course our Dhamma preacher today, Bhante Kusala, and also Venerable Vajirarame Jnanasingha Thero. Then we also have our committee members, Kamal Nilavira, Senaka Samarasingha, Lalit Gunasingha, and of course our special invitees, Don Andrew Ratnayaka. And our technical assistant who's assisting us is Tarindu, he is also there, and all Dhamma friends. Today it is Binara full moon Poya day, and of course everyone know that it is a very special day, especially because the establishment of the Bhikkhuni Sasana was started on the Binara full moon Poya day, and the first Bhikkhuni ordained was the stepmother of Lord Buddha, Mahapajapati Gautami. So today we have a very eminent and of course Bhante Kusala, who's been also been with us for done Dhamma programs for the international Dhamma program. So I'm very happy that once again that we've been able to invite Bhante Kusala, and he's accepted our invitation on this Binara full moon Poya day to conduct the Dhamma program. The topic today is Bhaddekaratta Sutta. I am not going to explain that because Bhante Kusala would be really going through in detail. But there is, of course, Bhante Kusala, as I said, will be introduced by Senaka. But before that, just one or two words I should mention about Bhante Kusala. He is a graduate from the University of Peradeniya and currently in the US with the Great Lake Buddhist Vihara. And I must also say that the Bhante Kusala obtained a Master of Divinity from Harvard University, USA. So I think, as I said, we are very happy that Bhante Kusala is there today with us. And I also want to make a small suggestion of our international Dhamma program. We have been doing many of our Dhamma programs, and we also have a lot of our Dhamma friends who are attending this. We also thought of doing something to the society, and at the moment we have as you know, we have been going through difficulties, but we are now on a better footing. But one of the areas is where we were trying to help the school children, especially with the midday meal. So I thought that we should undertake such a task. Initially, we were thinking of maybe starting with about 100 children to provide a meal, because the government is not able to provide in certain areas, and this is also connected with the education. In the event the midday meal is not available, you will find that the children are not coming to school. So we have worked out maybe I am really inviting our Dhamma friends to help us in this program. We worked out a program to see whether we can do it for initially commencing for 3 months in a small way, and then trying to expand it. And roughly there would be 100 children. The cost, all those, at this moment, I don't want to say anything. But if there's anyone who is really interested to be involved in this, because we need contributions from our friends, and especially on this very holy day of the Binara full moon Poya day, kindly let me know, and we will be able to then see how we can commence this project. So without any further details, I will now invite Mr. Senaka Samarasingha. Senaka is based in Winnipeg, Canada, and is also a very close Dayaka of Bhante Kusala. And may I now invite our committee member Senaka to introduce our venerable preacher today, Bhante Kusala.
Bhante Kusala. It's my privilege to introduce Bhante Kusala to International Dhamma Program, delivered Dhamma sermon on Binara full moon Poya day. International Dhamma Program first Dhamma sermon was conducted December 29, 2020 by Bhante Sarnapala from Misaga temple in Misaga. Second Dhamma sermon was done by Bhante Kusala on 26th February 2021. The topic was Dhammanupassana. Bhante Kusala came to Winnipeg on March 2017. At that time, Most Venerable Tirukunamale Ananda Mahanayaka Thera was also in Winnipeg. Two writers, mainly Anju and Ray, was writing a coffee table type of book called A World Faith of Spirituality Diversity in Manitoba. Bhante Kusala contributed an article for this book about Theravada Buddhism. Thank you, sir.
Bhante, we can start the program to deliver Pansil and then commence the program. Sadhu.
Yes, please put your palms together wherever you happen to be and say Namo Tassa 3 times to receive the 5 precepts.
Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa.
Buddhang Saranang Gacchami.
Buddhang Saranang Gacchami.
Dhammang Saranang Gacchami.
Dhammang Saranang Gacchami.
Sanghang Saranang Gacchami.
Sangham Saranang Gacchami.
Dutiyampi Buddhang Saranang Gacchami.
Yampi Buddhang Saranang Gacchami.
Dutiyampi Dhammang Saranang Gacchami.
Dhammang Saranang Gacchami.
Dutiyampi Sanghang Saranang Gacchami.
Yampi Sangham Saranang Gacchami.
Tatiyampi Buddhang Saranang Gacchami.
Yampi Buddhang Saranang Gacchami.
Tatiyampi Dhammang Saranang Gacchami.
Yampi Dhammang Saranang Gacchami.
Tatiyampi Sanghang Saranang Gacchami.
Yampi Sangham Saranang Gacchami.
Pānātipātā Vēramani Sikkhapadang Samadhiyāmi.
Pānātipātā Vēramani Sikkhapadang Samadhiyāmi.
Adinnādānā Vēramani Sikkhapadang Samadhiyāmi.
Vinnādānā Vēramani Sikkhapadang Samadhiyāmi.
Kāmesu Micchāchārā Vēramani Sikkhapadang Samadhiyāmi.
Kāmesu Micchāchārā Vēramani Sikkhapadang Samadhiyāmi.
Musāvādā Vēramani Sikkhapadang Samadhiyāmi.
Sāvādā Vēramani Sikkhapadang Samadhiyāmi.
Surāmēraya Majjapamādatthānā Vēramani Sikkhapadang Samadhiyāmi.
Sāmire Majjapamādātthānā Vēramani Sikkhapadang Samadhiyāmi.
Tisaranena saddhiṃ pañcasīlaṃ dhammaṃ sādhukaṃ surakkhitāṃ kattvā apamādena sampādetha.
Bhante Sadhu.
Samantā cakkavālesu atrā gacchanthu devatā Saddhammaṃ munirājassa sunantu sagga mokkhaдаṃ Dhammassavana kālo ayaṃ bhadantā Dhamma savana kalo ayang bhadanta. Dhamma savana kalo ayang bhadanta. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Yadati tang pahinang tang appattanca anagatam paccupannanca yang dhammang tattha tattha vipassati iti. So let's begin with a little background of what we will be talking about. Venerable Jnanasiha is here, and he will also contribute maybe at the discussion. But in this Dhamma talk, I thought I would teach something based on one of my favorite teachings from the Bhaddekaratta Sutta. So let me ask a question before I begin. So when we think of the past, when do we think of it? We think of it now, right? When we think of the future, when do we think of it? We think of it now. So all we have is now. So let's begin from there. This gatha that I just recited highlights the power of Pachuppanna. Pachuppanna is the Pali term for indicating the present. So what we have is this time. And this gatha points at looking at the experience that is happening in you right now. And the quote for that is Pachuppannancha yang dhammang tattha tattha vipassati. So you can begin reflecting on that. Whatever the Dhamma, whatever the phenomena Pachuppanna that is happening now, tattha tattha, there and there, vipassati. You begin seeing with insight. And this has a liberating effect. Viragaya nirodhaya samvattati. Viraga is dispassion, nirodha is cessation. So all these are pointing at someone's purification, as we find in the beginning of the Satipatthana Sutta. Chattaro Satipatthana, 4 foundations of mindfulness, Sattanang Visuddhiya, for the purification of beings. Soka Paridhavanang Samatikkamaya, for overcoming sorrow and lamentation. So this also points at that same direction. So we can incorporate the 4 foundations of mindfulness or any other teaching, as long as they contribute to the collectedness of your mind, samatha, and developing vipassana, the insight. If someone comes you tell that, I'm doing vipassana only these days, that is a wrong statement. That they are not doing samatha together. They are like the 2 sides of the same coin. They should be doing both together, because in one teaching the Buddha said, Samahite chitte dhammang patubhavanti. The phenomena become so clear to you in the collected mind. If your mind is rusted with different things, I'm sure you understand that you cannot think well, you may not say the right thing, you may not have the clarity of mind to make the proper decisions that you want to make. So thinking, in that context, you can understand that this Bhaddekaratta Sutta, beautiful teaching that tells you about the beautiful solitude. So Ekaratta sounds like one night, Ekaratta, Ratta goes closely with the night, but that may not be what it means. Ekaratta also is, someone who is a solo traveler, someone who loves their own company. Adutiyang, there is no second person with this person who loves their own company, right? There's this English saying that says that if you are alone and that you feel sad, you are giving yourself bad company. So it is our own responsibility to observe what is happening in our mind and give yourself good company. And how do we give good company? Through observing the experience that is happening now as they happen, as they occur. So let's expand this understanding a little further. In a very, I like to keep things simple here. You can also question yourself as I ask these questions from you. If seeing happens, and then hearing happens, and tasting happens, and smelling happens, physical sensations happen, and thinking happen. These 6 experiences keep happening. If seeing was the only thing that was happening, will you hear anything? I don't think so, right? If seeing is the only thing that was continuously happening, you will not hear anything. If hearing is the only thing that was continuously happening and that nothing else was happening, then, that is all your experience going to be. So why am I saying that? It is to touch your insight aspect, vipassana aspect, the the mind of investigation here, Dhamma Vichaya. Then that awakening factor comes and help you here to understand that cessation of seeing happens for new seeings to happen. Cessation of seeing happens for new hearings to happen. Of course, you can sense things are happening in the periphery, but what you give your attention to comes to the surface of your mind and becomes your attention. It grabs your attention. So this was simply talking about the cessation experience. What is the Pali word for cessation? Nirodha. It's a big word in Buddha's liberation, vimukti. Cessation seems to be happening unbeknownst to us, without us knowing, every moment. If only you pay attention to the minor cessations that are happening around you. That means things arise and pass away every moment. That is why I was trying to tell you earlier that if seeing was the only thing that was happening, you wouldn't hear anything. If hearing was the only thing that was happening, you would not see anything. So when your 5 faculties are working properly, each experience come and go for new experiences to happen. And now we set our attention to whatever is happening right now. Tatta tatta vipassati, observing it there and there as they occur. So tattha tattha vipassati is to observe the experience as they occur. This is something we often forget. Right? Let me begin telling this little story from the Plum Village tradition. This was when the founder of the Plum Village, Venerable Thich Nhat Hanh, was a very young novice. He had so much respect toward his teacher. So his teacher told him to bring something to the teacher. The young novice was very excited. He ran with excitement, but he slammed the door behind him. And the teacher stopped this young novice and said, "My dear child, come back. Now close the door again." This time he was super careful. He closed it with 100% of his being, full presence of him. And his teacher never had to remind him again. Then Thich Nhat Hanh became a big teacher, went all around the world, and at this one time he happened to be near where I live, Connecticut, one of our neighboring states here. And he was visiting a Trappist monk named Thomas Merton. And Thich Nhat Hanh told this story to Thomas, his friend. And Thomas said, "Yeah, I observed, how careful you are when you are closing the door. You seems to give all your presence to that simple activity of closing the door. So I observed that before even you tell me this story." So Venerable Thich Nhat Hanh went back to France, to the Plum village, and Thomas gave a speech about this, including this story, to his audience. And there was this German lady from the Catholic tradition who was so inspired by hearing this, full presence of just one thing of closing the door. And she went to France. You know why she went? She wanted to see how Thich Nhat Hanh closed the door. That one simple activity is where peace begins. If you are chaotic from your childhood up until now, you have missed so much of the activities that you have been doing. Maybe your mind is preoccupied with something that, comes and goes, that may not be so important, but that contributes to this erratic nature of your mind, continuously pulling your hair here and there. Imagine that kind of mind, and a mind that has arrived at peace, whose focus is what is in front of that person right now. And that kind of person has solitude as their priority. That is why in the first jhana, it begins with vivicheva kamehi, abandoning sensual pleasures. Vivicha akusalehi dhammehi, also abandoning unwholesome states such as hindrances, anything unwholesome. How free that mind is. Savitakkang savicharang, with thinking and examining still happening in your mind, because you are now, you have let go of five senses basically, but the sixth one, the mind, seems to be active. Vivekajang piti sukham, there is joy and happiness. Vivekajang, that is born of viveka, seclusion. And then you go to the second jhana, it says avitakkang avicharang samadhijang piti sukham. Same rhetorics here. Previously, that piti and sukha was arisen from viveka, seclusion. And here in the second one, it is samadhi. It arises from the collectedness of your mind, stillness of your mind, samadhi jam, that which is born from samadhi. And why does it give rise to piti and sukha, joy and pleasure? It is the relief. The moment you begin to shut all these doors, external doors, you are left with the mind, and the mind too slows down, or you begin to not pay attention to too many things. You give attention to one single activity, applying your mindfulness to maybe to breathing, maybe to loving kindness, filling all quarters of your mind with loving kindness. And that becomes the inclination of your mind. And thus your mind is leaning toward freedom, liberation. And the other analogy I bring to describe this experience of continuously being busy with this mind is that, we compare our experience with eating. You have a thing about mindful eating and so on, but and we try to limit it to 3 meals a day. I'm speaking about the lay community who stick to 3 meals a day, sometimes two. And what we ignore is that we also consume some nutriments 24/7 through seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, physical sensations, and thinking. Look, all the time there is continuous consumption, eating, 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 even when you are sleeping. That has to continue. And compare that with your present experience eating. The body knows what to take and what to remove. The mind does not know this. This is why, to empty the trash of your mind, you begin keeping a meditation practice daily. And that you start to give attention to seclusion, viveka, in your, on Poya days, especially on Poya days, without limiting it to a certain duration. As long as you need, it's like someone wanting sleep. You sleep as long as your body needs the sleep. So you meditate as long as your whole psychological and physical being needs unplugging and rest and solitude. So that is the kind of Bhaddekaratta. Bhadda is something that is so delightful. Ekaratta is attached to the solitude. Ratta is something of attachment, but this is a good kind of attachment to solitude. And there is also hints for this in the Satipatthana Sutta when it speaks about, after for 21 times in the Satipatthana Sutta, if you go look for this quote, I may have discussed this in my previous talk. Samudaya dhammanupassiva kayasming viharati. No, vedanasu viharati, or chittesu viharati, or dhammesu viharati. Now, on all four foundations, you will start to see samudaya dhamma, a rising phenomena, and vaya dhammanupassiva, the ceasing phenomena. You observe both the arising and cessation, ceasing. Samudaya vaya dhammanupassiva. So what is dhamma here? Dhamma here again is whatever it is that is happening now, the phenomena, the experience of you right now. Whether it is in the body, feelings, in your mind, or in your, other hindrances or 7 awakening factors or anywhere in your experience. So I would, put this also in simple terms by asking you to look within right now. Maybe you have a pleasant feeling maybe you have a neutral feeling, maybe you have an unpleasant feeling. Instead of going to the past, instead of going to the future, why not look at this as just a pleasant feeling, just a neutral feeling, just an unpleasant feeling without having to attach a story to it. It is not Seneca who is feeling it. It is just a feeling coming and going. Our tendency, though, is to affiliate it with, something else, somebody else. But in the Satipatthana Sutta says, Anissitocha viharati. You do not associate it. You remain unassociated. Viharati. Viharati is a kind of abiding, living, without affiliating it with or associating or giving a designation to it or identity to it. So this non-identifying with it also has a liberating effect. Why? Like in the Chachaka Sutta, Majjhima Nikaya 148, the Buddha asks this direct question from you. Knowing and seeing that your I was born when you were born and it dies upon your death, can you say that this I is your permanent self? No one will say that. Knowing the truth. So this knowing the truth is what the Buddha wanted us to know. There's nobody going to the wheel of dependent origination and deliberately taking an instrument and breaking it there. It is the true knowing that the Buddha, Satchikatabha, true knowing of the cessation of dukkha that the Buddha wanted us to see. It is through this true knowing you are able to let go of the thick darkness of ignorance. The opposite of ignorance, ignoring, not knowing, is truly knowing. But our tendency is to build unrealistic expectations in our mind about any given situation or a person. Imagine yourself being young. Suddenly, you are a teenager and you start to see the neighborhood girl or neighborhood boy who you did not care very much has become so beautiful to you. Something that, that says that your intelligence is hijacked by hormones, a layer of hormones, where you are not able to see the truth for what it is. You start to see features of this girl or this boy. Their nose has this shape, eyes are that shape, the hair is this color, and it has a length of that much, and so on. Instead of seeing the truth, we build a world of papancha, proliferations. And that example shows how far we go. Also the story of, I think, Chittahatta, the Dhammapada story, that corresponds to the Gatha of Durangamang Ekacharang. Mind travels far, alone, asariran, that it does not have a body, Guhasayang, it sleeps in a cave within this body. And ye chittang sanyame santi, those who tame, discipline this chitta, this mind, mokhanti mara bandhana, are liberated by the bandhana, bondage, bonding with the mara, the evil one. And in that story, there's this young man who tries to offer a set of robes to his uncle monk, who is an arahant. The uncle wanted to teach a lesson to this young man, so he refused accepting the robes. And then the young man decides, okay, I'm going to sell these robes and earn earn some money from it, and I will buy a cow, and that I will start a family, and I will also bring a child to this world, and with that child I will be coming to see my uncle to show respect to him. On the way, I will give my child to my woman, my wife, and that she may drop the child, and the wheel cart may go over the child. And if that happens, I'm going to whack her with a stick. And this man, the young man, hit his uncle. That's how far his mind went. The uncle asked, look, you were thinking of hitting your wife, but then you hit me. And that moment, the young man felt so embarrassed to see how far his mind went. And this is the result of not seeing tatta tatta vipassati, not seeing with insight there and there. This is how a young man can develop a whole world of imaginations without giving much attention to mindfulness. So look at the screen to see my hands now, my right hand and the left. I would say that the right hand is the reality, the left is the expectations. And the gap between the two is so wide, expectations become bigger and the gap becomes bigger. But when you start to see things for what they are, this gap decreases. And now you are one with reality because you are not with higher expectations. You are not seeing something that doesn't exist, that is not realistic. This is what happens to our minds. This is why we need to cultivate tatta tatta vipassati, seeing the experience right there. And I briefly said, you can look at the feeling, you can look at your breathing to see what is actually happening, the truth behind it. Knowing every little truth without ignoring, even the neutral feeling is to be seen with it is truth behind it. It's not something to ignore. It is something to see through clearly for what it is, that they arise and they cease. They don't permanently remain arising. When are you going to see the cessation of these? That is happening right now. But that cessation and final abandoning and cessation and nibbana are not to be mixed up. We are talking about the experience now, and nibbana is final freedom from any lust, hatred, or delusion. When all these have come to final cessation, you will have the knowledge in you that you have come to final liberation. It is through these parameters that you start to notice that, oh, I no longer have any lust, any hatred, or any delusion. Imagine living with a mind that is free from these states. It is so rare to find one. If you do find one, Panditanancha Sevana, associating that kind of a wise person is such a boon for your growth in this sansaric life. All you have to look is to how to win your own present, your own self, not a competition with somebody else out there. If you even imagine the competition with somebody else out there, that is a false imagination, unrealistic imagination. And oftentimes, because of our hindrances and desire, we do build unrealistic imaginations. And because of these unrealistic imaginations, or else called proliferations in your mind, you are continuously bewildered unknown to you that you cause harm to yourself, you cause harm to others, and you say the wrong thing, you say too much, you no longer have the ability to forgive yourself and move on, you are stuck in some past experiences. But what the Bhaddekaratta Sutta says is, Yadati tang pahinang tang. Whatever belongs to the past, pahinang tang, that has been ceased. Appatancha anagatam. Anagata is na agata. The future is appattan, has not arrived yet. So the past has been abandoned, eradicated. The future is yet to come. Pachuppannancha yang dhammang, whatever the phenomena, whatever the experience that is happening right now, tattha tattha vipassati. You begin examining it there as they occur. This is the kind of Dhamma that the Bhaddekaratta Sutta teaches. You can think about it, apply your wisdom to it, because you are also cultivating wisdom as a faculty, Panya Indriya, which is so precious, so good when you develop it, like the faith Indriya, Saddha Indriya, Virya Indriya, Sati Indriya, Samadhi Indriya, Prajna Indriya. These faculties are to be developed in addition to the sense faculties that you have. Faith, wholesome effort, mindfulness, collectedness, and wisdom. 5 faculties, 5 indriyas, in addition to the indriyas that you have. You can tell when someone begins speaking that this person is really a wise person. They don't give attention to nonsense. They continuously try to improve, and it shows through how they behave, how they speak, how they deal with the world, that this person has been trying to win the battle within. And once you have won this battle, you become a person called Upasanta, someone who has arrived at peace. Upasanto Sukhang Seti, someone who has peace, sleeps well. Anywhere he goes, he feels like he's going home because he has peace within. Now, do not seek peace without it. If you don't have it, you are not going to find it. Hitva Jaya Paraja, that person having abandoned any winning or any losing, he has conquered his own mind. Once this person has conquered his own mind through investigation, that thick ignorance, darkness, has become thinner and eventually vanishes. So this Gatha speaks in volumes to dependent co-arising experience. How do we, take an entry to dependent co-arising experience in here? You only need to close your eyes, or even remain your eyes open and see what is happening right now. There is contacts happening, phassa happening with the outside world. You are hearing something, you may be smelling things, you may be tasting, chewing stuff. These are contacts with the external sense basis, sense of objects, to say it properly. So the internal, eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, and the mind continuously build contacts with the outside world through vijnana, being conscious on what is happening around you. So there are 6 classes of consciousness: eye consciousness, ear consciousness, nose consciousness, tongue consciousness, body consciousness, and the mind consciousness. They have their own domains. Each of these arise and pass away for new arisings to happen. So, with meeting of the 3, internal, external, and this consciousness, with the respective domain, there is contact, passa. Tinnan sangati passo. Going together of these 3 give rise to passa. Passa is part of dependently arising experience, as you just observed. Passa paccaya vedana. Because of contact, there is feelings, pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. You're only going to see what is happening there. Tatta tatta vipassati. Vedana paccaya tanha. Pleasant feelings you want to keep. Unpleasant ones, you don't want them. Neutral ones, you don't see the truth behind them. You ignore them. This is where that ignorance lies. As in the Chataka Sutta, see the underlying tendency toward ignorance in neutral feelings. See the underlying tendency toward attachment in pleasant feelings. See the underlying tendency toward aversion in unpleasant feelings. Such difficult is the battle you have within yourself. When you begin to see these continuous arisings and their associations with any one of these feelings, the desire to see the truth for what it is, to give rise to right view, sammaditthi, is established in you. And then immediately, samma sankappa, right thoughts arise in you. And you also give value to samma vacha, proper speech. See the flow of Dhamma, the eightfold path combined with dependent origination, that you start to make sense. And right now you are starting to see that liberating effect of this Dhammic experience, seeing it as they happen. Are you going to ignore that you noticed unpleasant feelings? Are you going to ignore that you noticed pleasant feelings? Are you going to ignore how your mind is trained because of the previous karmic influence to get glued with the pleasant feelings? Are you going to ignore that? You see, there's no point ignoring it, but instead facing it right here. That can give you a pleasant, liberating, awakening experience. Some people mistake neutral feelings for equanimity. They have, if you see that ignorance behind neutral feelings, it is far from equanimity. Building equanimity, upekha, is a journey of wisdom. It begins from, upekha itself is a perfection, parami, right? Not adukkhamasukha. Dukkhamasukha is just a feeling that you often don't see properly. You only need to see the underlying tendency toward ignorance in these feelings, as in the Majjhima Nikaya 148, Chachakka Sutta. 6 sets of 6 explain how each of these feelings, pleasant, unpleasant, neutral, and their underlying tendencies should be exposed and seen for what they actually are. It's amazing when you start to see that, the puzzle is no longer a puzzle for you. And you start to see it without having to go to books, to hundreds of YouTube sermons. You don't need that. You start to see, oh, Dhamma is so tasty. That sweetness of Dhamma becomes so apparent to you. And pleasant, unpleasant, neutral feelings are all feelings, but seeing their underlying tendencies and seeing how craving arises is the only way toward letting go of craving, cessation of craving. In other words, cessation of dukkha. The Buddha said, if anything arises, it is only the dukkha, something that is transient, that is arising. Sounds like impermanence, but dukkha is really closely bonded, associated with, linked with transient nature. You see consciousness, and the moments that consciousness changes, a new thing, new conscious moment has arisen, and so on. It's so transient, and there is no way you can tell that it is yourself, you as yourself, that was arising and passing away. There's no permanent entity there. And you begin seeing it for yourself. And the Pali quote for this is Dukkhameva upajjamanang upajjati, Dukkhameva nirujjamanang nirujjati. Only the dukkha arises, only the dukkha ceases. Something you cannot grab onto seems to arise. Something you cannot grab seems to pass away. You cannot claim it as yours. And Dhamma becomes something, something that you start seeing every day. So then you start to see, oh, you cannot continuously expect sukha to last. But you can see the wisdom of sukha, the pleasant experiences. That if you say Nibbana is, Nitya Mangala Parama Sundara Sukha, you see it's such a false statement. Why do I say that? Because with wisdom, it is not such a fantasy world. But the truth is, it's an Avedayita Sukha, that it is not felt by you or anyone. It is the liberation of all, from all phenomena, cessation and final stilling and cutting from root. But there's no cutter. It is through seeing the truth of all the phenomena that the liberation has taken effect, taken any footing. And you start to see that whether it is Nibbana Sukha or any Sukha, you see the truth behind it. And then you abstain from making false statements. Although in the Dhamma Talk world, monks tend to say it is Nitya Mangala, Paramashanta, and all that. That sounds true. But a wise person, a person with wisdom, can say that any Sukha is conditioned except the Nibbana Sukha, that it is not conditioned. It does not have any footing. It does not have a city somewhere you can go and have a good life. It's not a permanent, lasting, abiding. It is a realization that happens here and now. Although some of your expectations may say, oh yeah, I like to, I like to get there and live happily ever after. That's not how it happens. And unfortunately, nowadays, when somebody passes away, we say, may you attain Nibbana. These terms have become very popular. And the meaning of it, the underlying meaning of it is so profound that we often ignore that we say it without putting much weight to these statements. And you say that to just any random corrupted person, may you attain Nibbana. How is it possible that that person is able to attain Nibbana having lived a corrupted life? The Buddha himself said that. Sometimes when somebody passed away, even when the Buddha was about to give up his Ayu Sanskara, within those 3 months, he was traveling toward Kusinara. Some um, some villagers in a certain town, uh, good ones and bad ones, they have passed away, and they went to some of the relatives went to the Buddha. The monks went to the Buddha as well and began asking, what was their destiny. The Buddha said, you don't have to ask me all the time. Just look at how they lived. Your intention is to make a good wish, of course, when somebody passes away. But you see how culture gets in the way that it has become a popular term that we say, may you attain Nibbana. The Buddha's parameter is to look about how this person actually lived, and that can tell the destiny of the person. And how ever that person became liberated is only possible to happen through seeing the experience that is happening right now, right here, in this very moment. That is Pachuppanna Kala, the time that is with you right now. I hope that explains it, and we got about 3 more minutes to go. But I would open it up for questions and start maybe taking it from there.
Thank you very much, and much merit to you, Bhante. I think you explained in detail about the real meaning of the Bhaddekaratta Sutta, especially of the not to think of the future and the past, but of course the present. And connected with that, of course, is the mindfulness. I think Bhante is also always maybe preaching on the importance of mindfulness, and I'm sure that our Dhamma friends would have got full details of it. So we have, if you have any questions, kindly send them on Q&A. In the meantime, we have Venerable Vajirarame Jnanasiha Thero. So I would invite Venerable Vajirarame Jnanasiha to give a few comments on the Dhamma sermon.
I like the sermon very much because normally people discuss the meaning of word Bhaddekaratta. There are several meanings, like Venerable Jnanananda says, the ideal solitude. But here, Venerable Kusala, Bhante Kusala went directly as to the sutra, and I like that very much. But the point I like to mention is that we have to develop, as I said, faculties have to be developed. And in developing the faculties, when you sit down, the problem is that the mind goes to the past and the future. The mind. The thing is true, that's the present, but the thing is the mind, he mentioned the word papancha, when you see some object, the thing, and the life itself is a collection of experiences. You could say all our experiences. And the mind is such that when you see a person who it, your mind goes back to the future or to the past and say, this is what it is. Even when you hear something, say, if you just listen, say, Venerable Madhi Panjasya Mahanayakatera, the moment the mind goes back and say, the point is, that's the nature of the mind, is either to go to the past when you see some object or the future. So the important thing in the Bhaddekaratta Sutta is that that's not the way. You have to be conscious, and you have to not allowing the mind to proliferate, thoughts to proliferate. And the verse that came to my mind, there is another very much similar, is I think in somewhere, Atitan nanu sochanti napajappanti nagatan pachupannena yapenti. Now that's important, the word he stressed very much, Venerable Bhante Kusala, the importance of pachupanna. And that's important, the Buddha has mentioned it, because our mind, the nature of the mind is either to go to the past or to the future. But by going to the past and by going to the future, there is no, you can't get to a liberation. The important thing is to be at the present and try, and that to much extent is a development, as you say, is a sikkha. You have to train your mind to be in that position and see deeper and deeper, and finally realize the anicca, dukkha, and anatta. So I think it was a very good talk that by Bhante Kusala, and the thought that came to her mind was that the whole purpose of this Bhaddekaratta Sutta is to say that this is the nature. Your nature is to go to the past or go to the future and start speculating. And that's in management or anything like that. Now, when you think of your country, what would be, how we were in the past, how will be in the future. But we have lessons from that. But the important thing is the decision, the correct decision that we take at the present moment. So these are just observations. I have nothing, no comments. It's a good talk by Venerable Bhante Kusala. That's all that I have to ask my comments.
Thank you. Dr. Sumana, are you there? Or I think he has had to go. I'm sure he would have loved to speak. I think he has mentioned that to tell Bhante that he has to go for some urgent matter and to pay his respect to Bhante Kusala. I think he would have been a lecturer at the university, Bhante. I think that's what he mentioned earlier. So he has to go somewhere. So in the meantime, may I now, of course, there are a few questions, but before that, we have Deepal Suryaraj. Deepal, are you there? Would you like to say a few words on?
Yes, Bhante, it was such a treat to listen to you. You mentioned something very interesting, to observe the underlying tendency to get attached. May I request you please to dwell a little bit on that. Now, things which gives pleasant experiences, one can understand why we want to perpetuate them. But even unpleasant things, like, for example, anger, which is not a pleasant thing, but we perpetuate that also without becoming aware. And it's easy to understand when if you are aware, it will not continue. But I would like you to shed some light on what is this underlying tendency to get attached, even to thoughts of hatred, anger, which is not a very comfortable thought. Thank you, Bhante.
Yeah, so I will respond to that. Thank you, Deepa Suryaji Mahatma. Before that, I like to also show my gratitude to Vajrarame Nyanase Hamdruo for his very kind words. Yes, the other Gatha, Atita Nanusochaya, is also one of my favorite ones. I had it at the back of my mind. To not complicate things, I wanted to stick with just one Gatha and then try to explain around it. So we get to some of the points that we can highlight here. And also, that's true that the mind has the nature of going in these directions. It is not stoppable. Thank you, Venerable, for also bringing that up at the same time, to say that this mind has that nature. Of course, we may think of something and it is here. And that's also the part that we can use, as Venerable said, to look and then free us. and that alone is such insight that some of us can develop. And to Professor Sumana Ratnayaka, I saw he was here up until this point. I have so much respect and love, gratitude to him. I look forward to catching up with him another time. To your question about underlying tendencies, the Pali word for this is anusaya. And so anusaya is something like something that sleeps that may wake up. This becomes so important to a person who is meditating, who doesn't feel like they don't have any anger, and who doesn't feel like they don't have any problem. We come to these points and think, oh, I must be enlightened. I don't feel any anger anymore. And there, suddenly somebody comes charging at you, and out of nowhere, there is your motivation to defend your stance. You want to say, I did not do that, I am the right person, and that sometimes your voice has a tone of aversion. You are wondering, where did I get that from? Moments ago, I thought I was enlightened, but now I see that something that was sleeping in me has risen and has, taken the direction of my decision making or thinking. So I would not say that anger or aversion is a thing that we get attached to, but it is because of attachment that we reject unpleasant feelings. We tend to say, of course, that is known to you, as I don't have to even say that because we dislike it, that disliking, sometimes you meet some people and they have not done anything wrong to you, but you have a tendency to ignore them. Like, people bring Dani to temple, and now that we know they are doing a good thing, and all of a sudden they start a conversation about politics, something that never interests my mind. I right now have to observe my mind. How is my mind can be present? How am I able to not suffer in this situation and not react? How am I going to have loving kindness toward this person? Because it is my mind that I need to win and protect. And one of the senior monks has said, start a Dhamma chat, and these people will go home.
Thank you.
Unfortunately, that is the truth, because people come to temples with all kinds of interests now.
Thank
So
you.
I'll go back to this again, that toward the end of Chachaka Sutta, Majjhima Nikaya 148, you can memorize this sutta. It's a beautiful sutta, 6 sets of 6, that at the end of it says that 60 monks became enlightened, and every time this teaching was given, 60 monks have become enlightened everywhere. So that's a very powerful teaching. And all they needed to see was the underlying tendency toward anusaya, toward greed for pleasant feelings, anusaya toward aversion, toward unpleasant feelings, and ignorance behind neutral feelings. Knowing that, their minds were liberated. It's a very, very powerful sutta that you all must memorize and have it close to your heart in your solitude.
Thank you, Bante. Shall we? Bandura Jayatilaka is really in the US. Bandura, is there any questions you have before I go to the ones received?
Something came to my mind. When the mind is pulled, actually, is it Bhante Kusura, thank you for the nice talk. Actually, you gave a lot of details and in-depth analysis of the phenomena that occurs when we do things. I have a question, which is like, when our mind gets pulled, especially like in meditation, etc., is it get pulled by the 5 aggregates, that which we are clinging to, or by the kilesas? Which one comes first? And both are working, I know, but which one is more active, more prominent?
That's a good question, Bandula Mahatma. I think to the question of five aggregates or the kilesas, defilements. So you can look at what is happening now, and five aggregates include, form, feelings, perceptions, volition, and consciousness as aggregates. So when you look at them and your defilements, I would say, knowing that the Buddha said, in brief, five aggregates altogether suffering. So anything with five aggregates should be defilements, as long as you take them as your five aggregates, your own identity. So I think either you can go either way. It depends on which lens you put on, and you may easily say it is defilements that happens first, and you cannot speak about defilements without talking about the five aggregates. And therefore, it depends on where you want to begin with, and it's obviously some of the forms, so these five aggregates, I would say, is the root behind all this happening, and is what you are going to discover in the journey of uncovering the truth behind the defilements. So that is a different approach. But I would definitely say that if your mind is at a place where you are observing five aggregates, you will definitely see that whatever is happening now is five aggregates happening. But if your mind is inclined towards observing defilements, you will say, oh, defilements are arising. But I think if you are skilled enough to see the five aggregates with wisdom, with proper wisdom, you are going in the right direction. I think that much I can say, rather than looking into, it depends on the person, obviously. Someone who is only able to see defilements and have not developed their faculties enough to see the five aggregates will only see defilements. So I think
Yeah,
it depends on where the person is.
in the Bhaddekaratta Sutta,
Right.
Buddha specifically states the role of getting onto the five aggregates and going back or going to the future, right? So I think.
Right. Can I take the next question, Bante? There is a question. This from Sister Chandrani. Is there a connection with three types of feelings and Nivarana? Venerable Sir, please explain.
Yeah, so connection with three types of feelings and nivarana, but I think Bandula Mahatma's point that the Bhaddekaratta Sutta's saying to look at the five aggregates and how the mind goes here and there. It's a beautiful thing that you brought up, and that is obviously something someone can develop seeing, and it definitely covers pretty much what I have been trying to explain. I try to keep things simple without bringing, technical terms, but I think we must also not fear them. If we always shut our minds, when we hear words like five aggregates, there is a Maya working to prevent you from hearing the truth. So thank you for bringing that up. And three feelings, pleasant, unpleasant, and neutral feelings, and nivarana. Nivarana include five nivaranas, five hindrances that they obstruct the path toward awakening. And they do have a connection. You can see sensual pleasure as a nivarana, as a person who is maybe someone who is indulging in sensual pleasure is inclining toward pleasant feelings. So, and someone whose mind is dealing with anger is, dealing a lot with unpleasant feelings. And someone whose mind is restless perhaps is more dealing with neutral feelings that they have not been able to see any of these feelings. But some volume of these feelings are associated with one of the five hindrances or all of them. When you are grumpy, you may notice, maybe I didn't sleep well last night, that is why I'm grumpy today. You see how feelings are connected with also sloth and torpor. And doubt leads to also doubting leads to any of these feelings. At the same time, you can look clearly from the pleasant feelings that you are you are thinking of someone, and your mind wants more of that person, and somebody else comes and disturbs you at the moment, and there arises anger. So that pleasant feeling and changing it to unpleasant gave rise to suffering, and that for no reason you are yelling at this person, and that person has no clue why you are why that person is being yelled at, and that your mind created a drama right there that does not speak, that does not exist. So they are definitely connected. Anything else?
There is one from, Esther from Austria. Vandami Bante, thank you very much for your talk. I could talk. Could you please repeat? I could not follow so quickly the characteristics of an upasanto and where in the suttas I could read about. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. It's in the Dhammapada. Upasanto Sukhang Seti. You may go to Sukhavagga, chapter on blessings and happinesses. And let me see if I can find it quickly. It's Dhammapada 15, actually. It's in the Sukhavagga, certainly. The verse number is 201. Upasanto Sukhang Seti. You just need to know everything is one click away now. The verse 201 is the verse that I brought up. Upasanto Sukhang Seti. Upasanta is someone who is super calm, who has won all the battles. I hope that explains it.
No, there's another one from Mr. Chandra Kumar. When one plans for the future, it may happen in the now or in the present moment. And yet it is something that is connected to future which has not arisen. How is this reconciled?
Yeah, that's a nice question too. It now and the present moment are the same thing, right? And with that understanding, I said, when you think of the future, you are thinking of it now. This is why we always need to understand that the kind of future that we fret about is only, giving you anxiety when you don't deal with it properly. You can plan things for sure. There's no harm doing that. But you don't have to build an anxiety over it. It's like this kid going to the dentist and he worried about it all night, only to find out when he went to the dentist that the appointment is cancelled. So what do you deal with all that worrying that he built? This is why in the society you see a lot of new contacts, new relationships, new meetings, new gatherings. They all keep happening so fast. Your mind cannot keep track on this. And you have to prepare, and stay so on top of everything. And that demand you created, you gave to your mind, is it worth it? At some point, you'll have to say, oh, I need to detox myself and take a break from that chain of reactions that I'm feeding my mind to. And when planning, you are fully present with that. And if you may have built any anxiety over it, you start to see this is not to be identified with I, me, or myself, or my failure, or my success. Instead, you may see, oh, I want to do better. That is why I'm feeling this way. And there's no harm thinking in skillful way like that. This in some other Buddhist traditions, they say upaya kaushalya, skillful means to apply positive thinking to conquer that moment and pay attention to preparing well. You focus on the beginning of whatever you want to do, the middle of whatever you want to do, and the ending of it. And that kind of skillful preparation will reduce your anxiety to a very minimal level. I hope that helps. I just brought up anxiety to give an example, although you never asked about it.
There's another question. It's a anonymous one. It says, thank you for an excellent, valuable talk, Bhante. How does one accept any situation with equanimity as it arises without hatred or aversion? That is the first question. I think other one refers, I will answer that later, but maybe this refers to Bhante.
Yeah, so I see that question, and I think people are also asking from you for a link to contribute to or some more information.
Yes.
Feel free to maybe
Yeah,
post
actually,
it to them
we had the first
for that
contribution.
project that you want to do.
Bhante,
So about the question on how does one accept any situation with equanimity as it arises without hatred or aversion. I see that this question is based on maybe someone who's on the path, still getting trained, someone who is still getting the discipline train, aseka, someone who is actually seka. Seka is the person who needs to be trained, and aseka is someone already done the training. This person who is on the path start to hear a situation of maybe, I mean, for lack of a better explanation, that you will hear your husband, somebody's husband is cheating, and now you are suddenly, grief-stricken, aversion-stricken. Both these hatred and aversion arises in you. And a wise person who has equanimity says, if I truly loved this person, is it possible for me to have hatred toward them? He is not my property. It is his own karma. And what my, situation going to be right now is to build equanimity in me and not let anger and aversion ruin my present state of mind. Because your anger, your aversion, and if any moment that it gets aggravated to something that you cannot control, and that by doing so you happen to experience some form of death, you may be ripening that anger continuously in future lives as well. And did you deserve that? And it was your mind that didn't have any equanimity built to deal with it. So how do we, that acceptance comes, accepting of any situation with equanimity comes with a mind that is so developed, so well developed, so very well developed, from beyond the third jhana to fourth jhana, and purification, Pekha Sati Parisuddhi, purification of mindfulness with equanimity has to be developed in that kind of a person. So long before that happening, the attachment toward husband, wife, children are gone. That is why it says in those jhanic experiences that Pubbeva Somanasa Domana Sattangama. Before even getting here, any attachment to pleasant feelings or attachment, would say aversion, are previously Pubbeva, before even getting here, are gone. It is then that that mind is able to deal with any situation. Up until that point, And I think what is best is becoming an anagami person. That is a person with the ability to not cling to any aversion, not return into any sensual worldly circumstance, and that kind of person is able to definitely deal with, a lot of good, deal with any situations and get a lot of good sleep because there's no aversion in that person's mind. I hope that explains it.
Thank you, Bhante. Actually, on the second part, if I know, since Bhante also mentioned it, that is how do we make contributions to this wonderful project that was mentioned. It is really the school midday meal. If you can maybe send your details, then we'll be able to send you all the full details of it. And I must tell all our Dhamma friends that already our own Dhamma friend and also committee member, Mr. Kamal Nilavira, has agreed to sponsor £50. So that is the start that has been made. So thank you very much, Kamal. And may I now, I think the time is coming close. May I invite Kamal to pay merit to Bhante, because Bhante has delivered a very, I think, very useful, very excellent, and also where maybe our Dhamma friends should be able to think for themselves as to what is the right thing that they should do. And I'm sure they would have benefited. So may I invite Kamal Nilavira, our committee member, is based in the UK, to pay merit to Bhante Kusala.
Okay, thank you, Lakshman. Buddhisarnai. On behalf of Professor Lakshman Vatawala and the IDP committee, I wish to thank Bhante Kusala for this very interesting Dhamma talk today. The Bhaddekaratta Sutta, it was really enlightening, and we all learned a lot today during the very simple way you explain how we can improve the way we live as Buddhists. When Bhante is no stranger to the International Dhamma Program, when Bhante participated earlier too, thanks to our friend in Canada, Mr. Seneka. So, in fact, today we had over 220 participants, including venerables, bhikkhunis from all over the world. I want to thank you all for joining the international program, Dhamma program today, and hope to see you all at the next Dhamma program. Thank you. Thank you, Venerable Kusala Buddhisarnai. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Thank you, Kamal. Bhante, if we can pay merit to the departed and also to the Devas, and maybe then we can conclude our Dhamma session.
We'll do it in two parts, in English and in Pali. May the suffering ones be suffering free, fear struck fearless be. May the grieving shed all grief, may all beings find relief. May all beings share this merit that we have thus acquired for the acquisition of all kinds of happiness. May beings inhabiting space and earth, devas and nagas of mighty power, share this merit of ours. May they long protect the Buddha's dispensation. Akasattha cha bhummattha deva naga mahiddhika punyantang anumoditva chiran rakhantu sasanang. Chiran rakhantu desanang, chiran rakhantu tvang sada.
So thank you very much, Bhante Kusala, and also we pay much merit to you. We are hopeful that Bhante's future programs and the various programs that have been planned out, especially on the mindfulness, which we think is of great use, and everyone is also practicing it. And maybe later one day, that maybe when Bhante is free, that where we can really speak in more detail for a Dhamma sermon on mindfulness. So I must also thank Mr. Senaka Samarasinghe for arranging the Dhamma Talk, and we are much grateful. He's also one of our committee members and helping us. So Bhante, we pay much merit to you, and we wish success in all the future programs and other areas. And in the event Bhante is coming to Sri Lanka, then we will be able to also arrange similar programs and to look after Bhante. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.